the recording started. Okay. Welcome to today's virtual workshop on building strong teen leaders. And we're hoping everyone will leave today with resources, strategies, and ideas that you can use to support the growth and development of young staff members and teen volunteers. This is a virtual workshop presented by the Click to Computer Science team. And so I want to start out by introducing ourselves. I am Dr. Sandra Frericks. I am a STEM specialist with Nebraska 4-H and part of the Click to Computer Science team. I've also helped develop our sister websites, Click to Engineering and Click to Science PD. So that's kind of the work that we're doing. And I'm joined today by our project manager. Anne, you want to introduce yourself too?
Sure. I'm Ann O'Connor, and I also work for the University of Nebraska at Lincoln, and I manage several different projects. The Clicks websites, we have engineering, computer science, and science are one of the projects that I manage. And my background is science education, and then wearable technologies is also what I work with in informal education. And so I've been in informal education about 8 years now.
And we're here to talk about teen leaders, but we do want to let you know that these other sites are also available to support your out-of-school time learning programs. Click to Computer Science really focuses on teaching young people about computer science, computational thinking, data literacy. And our goal with that work is to inspire young people to find their potential in computer science. And we'll be using some resources from the Click to Computer Science website, but you might also be interested in looking at Click to Engineering or Click to Science PD. So once again, thank you for joining. And Anne, I will turn it over to you.
All right. The first thing that we wanted to ask you is just how do you utilize teen leaders in your program? Or if you're not utilizing teen leaders at this point, we would be interested in knowing that too. If you want to just type that in chat, or you can unmute and feel free to talk as well. But we thought it would be helpful to just start with kind of who's working with teens, or if you're not working with teens, and kind of know who our audience is today.
Cindy, I'm going to ask a clarifying question because I think it makes a little bit of difference. Are your teens paid staff members or are they volunteer staff members? We know that they're used in both ways by different programs. Thanks. Paid staff members.
And I'll give you just about another 30 seconds or so to type your answers, and then we will move on.
Looks like a lot of the examples shared in the chat are paid teen leaders in programs. I'm excited to see that. Sometimes we expect a lot from teens in their volunteer time, but I'm happy to see people are finding ways to pay them as well. And unpaid interns, they're critical, I think, to our programming.
All right, thank you for your responses. That's really helpful to just kind of see how some of you are utilizing them. And it looks like, as Sandra said, quite a few of you are able to pay them, which is great, but they still have value in doing internships as well. So we'll talk about both types of systems because I'll talk later about a program that I project managed that has now ended that did both unpaid and paid teens. So the next thing that we want to do is show you a video about how teens make important contributions as teachers in a 4-H computer science programming after school program. And as you watch the video, think about how the teen leaders enrich the learning experience and what do these teen volunteers get out of their experience as a leader. And we'll go ahead and share the link in the chat as well.
Can everybody hear that okay?
Yep, I can hear it fine.
So welcome everyone to National Youth Science Day. Are you guys happy to be here? Yeah! Yes, we're happy to have you.
My name is Fiona. I am a high school student. I'm a teen leader for 4-H, so I help organize and lead computer science activities for youth in my community. I joined 4-H when I was 5. My grandma, who had been in 4-H when she was a child, took me to my first 4-H meeting, and I have done all sorts of projects. And then as I got older, I got more involved in leadership and helping lead club meetings and specific project meetings, and now I'm involved in computer science. I like to help others, and I find it fun to be on a team and develop relationships. We use the CS First curriculum, so we go over the script and what the activities youth will be doing, and the teen leaders, we watch it so we're familiar with it. And then at the meeting, we are in the front of the classroom guiding the youth through what they're doing, and then walking around during the meeting, helping them with any problems they have or answering any questions. When dealing with checking for understanding, a little thing that the teen leaders and I did for our meetings was having green and red cards. So one side is green and one side is red, and that way we can like look across the room, and if a youth had their card flipped red, we would know, oh, they don't understand what's going on or they need help. Very often I see them pursuing something that they're interested in, and then involving it in what they're doing with computer science. So maybe if they're doing a storytelling animation, they relate it to their own lives or something that they like.
So I did something that is about wildlife. I put a dinosaur in chasing a llama, and then I also did...
And I think that the CS First meetings and the computer science meetings are the start for that, and then they go on like in their future and they involve their passions with computer science. We do have some volunteers involved that are people who do computer science for a living, so it's good for them to see those role models, or we can just tell them about different opportunities, like, oh, when you did this, this can relate to this career. And then we help them see themselves as computer scientists. So we integrate computer science with other aspects of 4-H. We have a summer camp where we did some unplugged activities.
So we're gonna create our own version of conditional tag. 3, 2, 1, go.
I think there is an advantage to youth being taught by someone who's not that much older than them, because maybe they'll feel a little bit more comfortable to ask questions or to share what they're doing. And I feel like maybe I can relate to them a little bit.
All right, so I want to ask you a few questions about this video, and you are always welcome to unmute or type in chat. And so one of the things that I wanted to know is, what did you notice in the video? Did anything stand out to you? Yep, we did not have grown-ups, and that was intentional. I know these programs did require an adult to be in the room with them. So there was an adult there, but they really stepped back and let the teens actually lead. And so they did everything in these programs, from the instruction to helping the students out. And the adult was just in the back of the room.
I really like the section where Fiona talks about the red and green cards that they use, because that was a strategy, that was a teaching, a pedagogical strategy that the teens developed themselves as they saw the need for it to be easier to see who needed help out of a large group. And you get the sense of pride in her voice as she's talking about how they came up with that idea and how well it works for them. They still use it. Fiona's finished college now, but they're still using that strategy in California in the programs there where she worked.
And a couple of the other comments, the teens were engaged with the youth. That is something I noticed in the video. And all of the team leaders really were passionate about computer science. They loved it. Some of them have actually gone into majors that are related to computer science. So that was definitely an area of passion that they really enjoyed. And so I think that kind of comes out in the video as well, that you can hear them when they're talking about it. Relationship building and connecting to the kids is a really important piece. And I know that these teens received training on how to do that. So that was not in the video, but you can see that they do a really good job with that. So next question is, what are the teens doing as leaders? So what do you see them doing in a leadership position within the video? Or what are their responsibilities? And Sandra already mentioned they came up with the idea of the green and red cards, which makes sense in computer science. If you have your hand up, you can't be typing. So if they were writing code for this program, so they needed to be typing. So if they had to have their hand raised, they couldn't actually be typing probably. And so they were just going to be sitting there with nothing to do. And so the red and green cards, particularly in a computer science setting, is really helpful. So the kids can continue working until somebody can come over and help them with their problem that they're having with the coding. And somebody said preparing to themselves to lead the session ahead of time. That was mentioned in the video. That's really important. Nobody teaches something well that they don't understand themselves. And giving teens the time to actually prepare themselves and make sure that they understand the content is a really important piece of utilizing teens. And another person noticed that they were teaching and walking around. That is something that I have seen teens stand at the back of rooms because they're not comfortable with that. I've seen teens jump in and they're totally comfortable with it, and they'll just get in there and they'll help everybody. And so it's interesting. I don't know if that's a training piece or partially personality, but I've observed both ways in classes. And then listening to the kids is really important. That's another skill that you can actually train teens to do. Some do it naturally, but it can be trained as well. And then the last question we had is, what do you think the team leaders add or added to the learning experience for the youth? They add anything, or what do you think they added? I think we've touched on a few things, and they connect with the kids is one of the things that they can do.
This is too much to type, so I'll unmute myself this time and answer. I think I think the kids really like having younger instructors. I think they see that passion, and they really connect with those kids, and they can see more often see themselves in those youth instructors. So I think that's a really positive thing to have.
I think that's a good point, and Alana said something very similar. And Cindy said providing a role model. That's something that we haven't really discussed yet, but they are role models, and the elementary or middle school students look up to those high school students, particularly if they know them personally and start building those relationships. And the energy and enthusiasm, teens can be very enthusiastic about things. They have a lot of passion for things. Not that adults don't. I'm not saying that, but they can bring a lot of passion to something that they're really interested in as well.
One of the things we've seen around computer science in particular is sometimes they're more confident than adults about the content. You know, if the teens themselves have spent time doing Scratch, which is what the kids were doing in this video, and so they approach it with a lot more confidence than staff members who might not be as familiar with the software or the programming or the computer science involved. I don't know if other people have seen that. It seems like it's more pronounced around computer science than in some other areas of STEM that we work.
Yeah, and I think it's a good point that they are just learning the content, or they very recently learned the content, so they can have empathy for the process and relate to the kids that struggle with it. And I think that I've seen that in programs that I have managed as well. They just know how to relate to the kids that are struggling. So I think some really good comments. The next thing we want to do is move to having a unique role, and Sandra is going to talk about that.
Sorry, I'm a little behind. Get the next slide up. So I wanted to lost my place. There we go. I wanted to talk in particular about an idea that we've thrown around here a little bit about them being just a little bit older than the youth they're teaching. And in research, it's often referred to as near peer mentoring. I don't know if that's a phrase that you have heard before, but generally a near peer mentor is a few years older than the people they're working with. 4 to 7 years is kind of a common range for near peer mentoring. And sometimes that's used in the workplace where you have somebody who has a little bit more, who's been around for a while, but is not a longtime employee, mentoring a new employee. That could be a near peer mentor, but a lot of times we're using it with college students working with high school students as near peer mentors, or in this case, high school students working with younger youth as near peer mentors. And Anne will share a link in the chat to a research article. There's a lot of research around this, but I chose this one from Department of Defense just because I felt it was pretty approachable, and there's some links in there if you want to learn more about it. But they're talking about a project where Army supported college students are serving as near peer mentors to teach biology to middle school and high school students during the summer in programs that are at local colleges or universities, or sometimes on Army posts. And that's the sort of model that it sounds like, as people were describing, a lot of you are using in your programming, perhaps intentionally, perhaps unintentionally, as bringing teens in as near peer mentors. And it's a good thing that you're doing it. Research shows that this type of mentoring helps all students, but it has been shown to be particularly effective for females and others who are underrepresented in STEM disciplines to help connect to STEM. And so having a near peer mentor seems to make a even more significant difference for these people who are underrepresented or don't see themselves in STEM. It may be because meeting somebody who's tackled similar challenges to them, it is helpful. It increases their confidence and their self-esteem. They get to know teen leaders that help them see a path toward more education or a STEM career for themselves. It seems like from research that the best near peer mentors seek to build relationships, and Fiona talked about that in the video too, the importance of relationships, of trust and respect, which can be really helpful for mentees. we also talked about how teen leaders bring their own personal experiences to their roles as teachers or leaders. Sometimes they can come with a lot of energy and enthusiasm for the learning experience. And we want to support that and encourage that and make use of those strengths that they bring as resources. It looks like, as we did our preliminary discussion, that a lot of you are working with teen leaders in different ways. So I want you to feel free, as we're going into our discussions, to pull from your own experiences as well. But I do have a video that I'm going to share next. It connects to what Fiona was talking about. She mentioned the conditional tag activity. So in the first video. So this is a deeper dive into that activity. Oh, sorry. Here's the quote from that research article. I should have pulled this up sooner, about why near peers are so important, and encouraging kids to learn, to try new things, or to consider a pathway in STEM. Oh, and I like the point Cindy made too, that being a near peer mentor is also beneficial to the teens, that both the children who are learners and the youth who are teachers benefit from this relationship. And that's true of most mentoring. We know that it's beneficial to be a mentor as well as to be mentored. So in the conditional tag video that we're going to watch next, just going to look more deeply into this activity and see another example of teens leading. In the first video, we saw a lot of Fiona, and she is an experienced and a skilled leader and teacher, even though she's, I think, 17 or 18 when we're making these videos. In the next video, you're going to see some teen leaders that are maybe not quite as experienced as she is, but they're still stepping up and they have a lot to bring to the experience. So again, as you watch it, notice how the younger children interact with the teen leaders. If you can try to sort out who the teen leaders are, I think, no, I'm not sure they are all wearing green t-shirts. A lot of them are wearing green t-shirts, but I'm not sure they all are. But think about what the teens are doing, how they're interacting with younger youth, how the youth respond to them. And then the question I want to dive a little bit deeper in as we discuss it is, what supports can help them be successful at what they're doing? So let's look at this video, really thinking about how do we set these teens up for success in what they're doing.
The Game Changers event today is about computer science. All right, does anyone know what computer science is?
In this computer science unplugged activity called Program Your Playground, Megna, a 4-H teen leader, begins by introducing fundamental concepts of computer programming, like conditional statements. To practice using conditionals, youth are tasked with designing a game of tag using the terms if and then.
Has anyone heard of a conditional before? I know we talked a little bit about this.
If food on my plate, eat. Else, don't eat.
Today we're going to use parts of the software design process to make your own unplugged games without using a computer. So we're going to create our own version of conditional tag. In this activity, I'm going to give you guys 2 beach balls, and they're going to be 2 different colors, okay? And they're going to be corresponding with different types of its. So tagging will occur with touching someone with a beach ball instead of your hand. So you're just going to tap them with the beach ball lightly. And you're going to create your own type of game similar to freeze tag. So you're going to make your own version of tag right now.
So if you are tagged by the green, it then dance 10 seconds. If you are tagged by the yellow, it then hop up and down.
I'm going to have this group go first, all right? So can you guys come up over here and explain your game to everyone?
Okay, what we
If you get tagged by the green it, then you freeze for 15 seconds. If you're tagged by the yellow it, you freeze until someone who is not it tags you. If everyone is frozen, the game is over.
3, 2, 1, go.
Nobody can catch me.
Okay, everyone freeze.
After the games are played, Meghna asks youth to reflect on what was learned through user testing. She helps youth see how feedback can be used to improve their instructions.
Okay, so what went well for that?
I think that it went well because it was clear that if you were standing still, you were tagged, and people knew that you were tagged.
You guys were using conditional statements, which is definitely part of computer science. You have to use that when not different stuff, but you just use conditional statements to make a game of tag, which has nothing to do with computers, but it still was computer science, right?
So again, I want to just open it up and have you share, what did you notice about that video? Anything that stood out to you as Meghna was leading? One of the things I noticed is her confidence seemed to be building throughout the activity. That it really struck me watching it this time. I've watched it before, but she was a bit tentative and nervous at the beginning of the activity as she was trying to introduce it. But at the end, when she was wrapping it up, she had a lot more confidence about what was going. Maybe she wasn't sure how things were going to go at the beginning and it went well, so she felt confident. But I noticed that change in her demeanor throughout. Anything else? Mhm. How did the youth respond to her as the leader? It may be because there was a camera in the room, but the kids seemed really well behaved. They were orderly. There were not sometimes the classroom management problems that plague all of us in out of school time.
I agree, Sandra. I thought, oh man, those kids are not being rough enough.
Was this the first, like, was that a group that had met together previously, or was that the first time that they had met?
Probably there were kids that knew each other within the group, but they had come actually, it was filmed on the Google campus in California, and they had come for a 4-H National STEM Challenge Day event. So it was a really diverse group coming together. So they didn't all know each other. Some of them were kids of Google employees. Some of them were 4-Hers, part of, I think it's Santa Clara County that Fiona and Meghna were
It
teaching.
is home county. I know where it is. Yeah, so I'll echo what Alana was saying, that yeah, that was a really well behaved group, and I would actually expected a lot more. I mean, I'm sure we only saw the snippet of it, but I would have expected a lot more. I guess maybe not roughhousing exactly, but I would have expected it to get a little bit rougher than that. So yeah, that was interesting.
So we kind of wanted to follow up this discussion thinking about what are the things that help teen leaders be successful. So we've seen two examples here with Fiona and Meghna teaching different activities. What do they need? What prep, what structures around them are important? And this is where I'd really love to have you draw also from your own experiences. Many of you work with teens as staff or volunteers in the programs that you do. What helps them be successful?
I can go first. So I work from Beyond School Bells, but I was a program director in an after-school program for 4 years prior. And we utilized team leaders a lot, actually. I think most of our staff were team leaders because being in a rural area, you don't have access to maybe college students like other programs would. And so something that really worked, or that I really tried to focus on, was providing them a lot of support and training. And so that's something that I think we often overlook. And they're not always opposed to just being thrown in there and learning as they go, but they also need some support and making sure that we're checking in with them, we're properly training them. And I did not do that perfectly. And that's something that I am working on now so I could better support programs. So they do take a lot of support, and just building those relationships with them is very important.
I'm kind of trying to restate a little bit what you said, Alana, because I want to try to capture it in the chat so we can look at it later. But I think that's a really good point. Somebody to check in with them.
I found that I think it's really great when they have a teen partner to teach with, when there's a pair of them or more than one of them. I think that makes them feel less alone, more confident, because they have their sort of, even if they aren't like friends, they have somebody with them who is also their age, and they can sort of like figure it out together. And that is an experience that I think is common to their school at work as well. And so it's something that already sort of like it initially just feels comfortable for them to engage that way. Like, okay, well, I have this person I can work with to do this. It's not just me in front of it. And then my other sort of big thing that I always use is I really just like to give them as many experiences to be in the classroom space as possible, and sometimes with their leading, if an adult is leading, just so they get used to the environment, so it doesn't seem so new and different to them. I find that that's really productive for teens.
What do you mean get used to the environment? Unpack that a little bit more.
Sure. So some teens have been in after school environments before. Some teens have not. And an after school environment can be very different than a school classroom, which, of course, every kid remembers what their school classroom looks like, but not every kid has been in an after school program. And so I think it's sometimes helpful to introduce them to what that kind of learning space can look like and how it can differ from a school classroom and learning environment. And sometimes that sort of helps them. That learning about that context helps them sort of set the stage in their minds for what's expected of them as facilitators in that space, and how that can differ from, again, what their school teachers look like.
Got it. Yeah, that makes sense. One of the things I've noticed is that teens need support around logistics, time management, some of that, and it may be wide. Some may need a lot of support around logistics, and some may need a little. So it's kind of being responsive to the teens you're working with, but I think that's an important thing, because if they don't have those skills, and you can't, maybe a 15, 16-year-old hasn't had experiences or even hasn't had the brain development to be good at that yet. So you can't presume that they have it, but you just are setting them up for failure if they don't come in with those skills and you're not providing support around logistics. Then that seems so crucial. I want to thank everyone who's sharing in the chat too, because I'm not going to take time to read all of those, but I encourage you to keep up with what's happening in the chat too. And we're going to save that at the end of the meeting and capture some of that in our notes, because your experience is really helpful in seeing what this looks like in practice. But it sounds like there is this sense that teens need support, and different individuals, maybe meaning different levels of support. So paying attention to what an individual needs to be successful is important. I see that sometimes, that not all of them are comfortable with it. Kind of implies some of them are comfortable with it, and we need to really pay attention to individuals and provide them maybe a sliding scale or variable level of support to meet their needs. Trying to see if any of the other ideas we wanted to make sure came across. Most of those have. One of the things that I didn't see, unless I missed it, is they need good curriculum, good activities. I would not expect at least a new teen leader to be developing their own, writing their own curriculum or coming up with their own activities to teach. Having some good resources that they can use is really important. We want them to adapt it, to make it their own, but not have to start from scratch. And the other thing I would add is teens need flexibility. We want them to grow and develop as part of their experience. If they're just with you for a summer, or if they're with you for a whole school year, we would expect particularly teen leaders, but even our regular full-time adult staff, to change and grow over that course of time. And we want to give our teens space to grow, to recognize their growth and development, what they're getting better at, and help them see that, but give them space to grow, but also the supports to be successful, I think, is kind of where we wanted to come from. And it sounds like that is something that you can do well from what you're sharing in the chat. So I'm going to turn it back to you, Anne, to talk about the next section.
All right, so then we wanted to talk about the program structures that teen leaders need to succeed. And so I have been a project manager for 2 different projects where we've utilized teens. One is currently ongoing, called the Engineering Pathways Mentors. And the other model is called STEM Cares. And that one was 2.5 years long, and it has now ended. And so I just wanted to share with you one model for utilizing teen leaders. And what we did with both of these programs actually is we hired college students, because we have the university, and we hired college students specifically to mentor high school students around the state of Nebraska, because we had programs all over the state, and we ranged from 3 programs a semester up to 16 programs. So it varied, and we tended to have more in the summer. And so we hired between 3 and 5 college students, which we call instructional leaders, and they managed anywhere between 8 and 20 high school students per round. So basically we did a fall, a spring, and a summer, and we did 7 of those rotations during the time that we had the program. And we did try to hire college students with either STEM majors or education majors with an emphasis in STEM. So FFA teachers, we had somebody that was doing an FFA program, or science or math education majors. And we also then tried to pair those college students, because we always required 2 college students to be in a meeting. And all of our meetings were done via Zoom, which I think in some ways is harder to connect, but they did a really good job with that. And so 2 college students, hopefully an education major and a science or STEM major, were together for each meeting. And then they had between 2 and 5 high school students that they would meet with weekly. And so what we did was we trained the college students first, and they had between 4 and 10 hours of training, depending on how many curriculums they wanted to learn themselves. We had 4 different curriculums or 4 different curricula that we were offering. Mechanical engineering, garden engineering, we had slime, which was about chemistry, and the power of the wind. And so we had some college students trained on all 4 curriculums, and we had some that specialized in 1 or 2. And then the programs would teach typically each high school student would teach one of those curriculums, each being 6 hours long. But some of them taught 2 or 3 curriculums. And we had a lot of high school students that returned. Some of them started with us as sophomores and went clear through their senior year. And so they ended up teaching all 4 curriculums, some of them multiple times. We also had a lot of the instructional leaders come back for multiple semesters as well. And so then you really got to start building the relationships with your students, and you really got to start seeing them develop and grow across years instead of just one semester. And so one of the things that we were focused on for teaching the college students was the pedagogy of actually teaching STEM. And then also we talked about time management. We talked about supplies. There were a lot of supplies to manage in these in this curricula. And then we also had the curricula developed specifically for high school students to lead. So it was written, and the Power of the Wind was modified to be appropriate for high school students to teach. And we also put in a couple of other structures and supports for them. One of the things that I did was I ordered all the supplies for them. I packaged them into kits so that which takes a lot of time, so that they could have them ready to go. And they were all labeled by the lessons. There were 6 lessons in each curricula. And so if it was lesson 1, they knew exactly what they needed for supplies in lesson 1, packaged in sets of 10 ready to go. That was one of the structures that we supplied for them. And then after we trained the college students, we then had them train the high school students. And they also did that via Zoom. And they went through the curriculum and each lesson and talked about that. They talked about classroom management techniques. They talked about pedagogy. They also talked about the time management, all those things that we've really already discussed. And they started with an initial 2 to 4 hour training with the high school students. And often that had to be broken up with high school students' schedules being so busy to an hour or 2 hour block at a time. And then after they initially got trained, the teens then met weekly with their college mentors for 1 hour a week during the time that they were teaching. So if they were teaching once a week for 6 weeks, then they met with their mentors for that 6 weeks. And they would often meet a week or 2 before that. And sometimes they met a week after that as well, just to make sure that they answered any questions for them about the final evaluations and things. And I also, with the project lead, met weekly with the college students as well. So there was ongoing support from both directions with the college students and the high school students to support the teen leaders. And we also required there to be an adult in the classroom. So there was always an adult with the high school students. And we tried really hard to pair them up. We had some counties that were just not able to find 2 high school students. And so they would have one person that taught. But the majority of our sites did get 2 teen leaders, and they were paid. The high school students and the college students were all paid. And then I had one site where we hired 16 plus. I noticed somebody else had mentioned that as well. They had some 15-year-olds that wanted to help as well. So they actually brought in 3 volunteers that were freshmen in high school that helped the other 2 that we had hired that were juniors. And they actually met every Saturday with all 5 of them and went over the lessons and went over the curriculum. And I got to all of the sites that were close enough to Lincoln. I did not get to every site, but I tried to get to as many as possible. And one of the things that I noticed, that team worked really well together because they put in a lot of time. They were meeting about 4 hours on Saturday, every Saturday to do this. And so those supports and the way that the teens chose to get involved in the program was really interesting to me because it worked very differently between programs. The other thing that we did that I think really helped us out was we had local county 4-H extension educators that really knew the kids in their county, and that's primarily how we recruited. So we just asked them, do you know people, high school students in your county that would be interested in doing this? And sometimes they recommended high school students because they knew they were interested in education. Sometimes they recommended them even though they were maybe wanting to go into business or a STEM related field, but they thought this would be helpful for their communication skills and their leadership skills. And so we had a variety of different high school students going into a lot of different fields. And one of the things that we helped them reflect on at the end of the program was just how has this either changed or encouraged your career exploration? So are you still wanting to do exactly the same thing you wanted to do when you started this, or are you thinking about things in a different way? And some of the education students that were interested in education said, I really have figured out I love working with this 3rd to 5th grade age level. Others said, I absolutely don't want to work with this 3rd to 5th grade age level. I figured out I really want older students or younger students. But I also had people that ended up going into computer science or business that said this was just a really great opportunity for them to build communication skills, to build leadership skills. They enjoyed working with the kids and they felt like they were making a difference. And so that was one of the big things that came out of the reflections and post surveys of both college and high school students. They felt like they were helping others. And so those were some of the things that we learned through that program. And currently we are doing the Engineering Pathways Mentors program, which is a slightly different focus. It has different supports, but it's really interesting these program structures on the slide that Sandra just put up are really important to think about whenever you're putting in a program. And so as you look through these, we had dedicated adults who supported the teens, both at the sites and the college students. So we really layered 2 layers in. We did actively recruit teens, and we did have some counties that wanted to do this program that never were able to find teens to do it. They advertised in high schools, they just didn't get anybody interested. So that happened sometimes. We actually had the curriculum written, so we did have a strong curriculum as well. We did quite a bit of initial training up front to make sure that students felt like they were comfortable. And then I went and tried to see at least one time them teach a lesson so that we could just see what was going on in the after school programs. We continued to have ongoing training and support with weekly meetings and recognition and reward. There were both the youth were recognized in one of the programs. They actually had the public school. 32 out of 34 3rd through 5th graders did this program in one of the counties that didn't have an after school program. The school actually arranged to bus them to the library that was in a different town. And the school said it was a fantastic opportunity. And so they actually recognized all those students on their awards day, the last day of school, for becoming slime engineers. So some of those things we did as recognition and rewards. One of the things that we did for the teens and the college students was we built in a pay raise system. So if they were doing a good job, we could increase their pay, which I know some people may be able to do that and some can't. But that was one of the tangible ways that we rewarded the students that were returning and doing a good job each semester. And then the other ones you can read. We did a lot of feedback and evaluation. We had youth surveys. We had the high school and the college students fill out surveys every semester just to get feedback, and we made adjustments based on that. And then setting the teens up for success, that was providing supplies, making sure they had the kits, delivering the supplies, making sure we answered questions. We actually had the students, they could text, they could email. Sometimes in the middle of a lesson, they would text and ask a question. We also had them on I think a GroupMe app that we monitored, but they could always contact their high school or their college mentors and ask questions if they needed to. So they were available, tried to make themselves available around their class schedule when the students were teaching. And so that's kind of a fast overview of that program. And so I was going to ask just quickly if you have any questions or anything I need to clarify about the program, and then we will move on with the rest of the information.
I think it's really helpful to kind of see what these structures look like in action in an actual program. And I shared the link in chat to this research article if you want to see more about it, by Fay Lee and Shelley Murdoch from California 4-H.
Yes, and it doesn't look like there are any questions, so let's move on to the benefits then.
Okay.
For the team leaders.
So we've really been focusing on how teen leaders benefit our programs, what they bring to those experiences, and how their experience and expertise contributes energy and enthusiasm, how younger students benefit from having near peer mentors. And then we kind of discuss the supports and how we build those in to help teens be successful. But I also want to think about not just how does your program benefit or the youth in your program, but how do teens benefit from this experience? What do they get out of it? And how is that going to impact them in the future? From a 4-H perspective, I'm interested in the positive development of both the teen leaders and the youth that they're leading, whether those teen leaders be college students that are learning and growing through their experience as being a mentor, or high school students who are trying something new maybe for the first time. So I'm going to invite you to share in the chat if you have ideas about how the youth you work with benefit from being a teen leader. I will check that. Thanks, Cindy. But I also want to share, these are some quotes from teens as they are, well, these are college students that are applying to be in our program, 4-H interns. And these are some of the things they're telling us they're hoping to get from the experience. Does this sound familiar to you? As Ann and I were looking at these earlier, we're talking about how teens really are pulling on their own passions and what they're interested in. And I saw that in here. They're talking about they're working with kids or connecting with people. They are excited about the opportunity to teach, or they're really interested in computers and excited about the opportunity to share that with others. I saw a lot of, in 4-H, we might call that their spark. That thing that interests and motivates them, and how they see that connecting to this experience. They're service oriented. That's another thing that we talked about, Anne, as we were looking at this. They want to help. They want to be of service to others, and that's part of the reason they're interested in this experience. And I do think that they have opportunities. Hopefully we give them opportunities to connect to their passions and really that. But we also, they're developing other skills as well. And it's not just about their passions, but they're also building relationship skills, communication skills, leadership skills. And I think those are important as well. This is another, some of the research in our field about what are the benefits to teens as they take on these roles. So I will share that link as well, so you can explore more. These are what the researchers saw the benefits being to teens from having these sorts of experiences, their opportunities to grow and develop. I also think that that experience of being a leader is really important in building confidence and preparing them for other opportunities in high school or college or when they're new in their career to have that sort of experience. Realizing our time is passing, I'll try to move us through. These are some of those interns that I had quotes from, working with the community in one of our outreach events. Each semester, when we bring in a new group of interns or have interns returning to us, I really think about who benefits, because it's not just us. We benefit. We can do a lot more because we have our young adults and teen leaders, but I also see that they're benefiting, they're growing and developing, and the youth they're working with are growing and developing, seeing STEM in new ways. And I think that's part of the beauty of this. It's really a win-win-win situation that everybody is benefiting from having teen leaders. And Anne, I'm sorry I didn't give you much time, but I'm gonna let you talk about our key takeaways.
All right. So we have 4 key takeaways. And it's the first one is before you begin working with teens, you should know why you're incorporating teen leaders into your program and what outcomes are important to you. Not every program has the same outcomes that they're interested in. And if you don't have clear goals in mind, I think it will be really hard to know if your project has been successful. And so your program can maybe focus on just 1 or 2 outcomes, particularly if you're just starting. Maybe you just want to really focus on one thing. But as you continue to develop your program, you may be looking for benefits on many levels, and you can start kind of getting a feel for that as you continue to run these programs. The second thing is providing structures to help teens be successful leaders needs to be intentional. It doesn't happen by accident. And support for young leaders should be embedded in their experiences, and it needs to be planned from the beginning of the project. It's not helpful for them or your program to put the teens in leadership roles without giving them the supports they need to be successful. And then the third one is the positive youth adult partnerships are critical to the success of teen leaders, and there's a lot of research on this as well. You really need adults that care about the success of your teen leaders and can invest the time in the teens and their development. And that's been one of the struggles that I have seen in after school programs that I've worked with. They don't have necessarily the staff to invest time in the teen leaders, and so they really have to make some sacrifices and some choices about how they're going to do that. And this helps set your teens up for success as well. And it's important to provide the teens feedback when things do and don't go well, because it helps them to shape their experience to know what success looks like. And then the fourth one is don't forget to support the logistics. I have found in my experience, teens do not necessarily manage time that well, particularly in an activity. If they're given 10 minutes and it takes them 35 because maybe they didn't set up their supplies correctly, or they didn't go through it carefully enough and figure out how they were going to explain it. That's something that they definitely need help with. Finding good curriculum is another area that it's just really beneficial to, especially for new teens, to either give them the activities or guide them in helping them find curriculum. And then the time to plan and prepare, which we've also discussed. And so those are the key takeaways that we hope will benefit your program as your teens act as near peer role models for younger youth. And your program participants will benefit from unique teen-led experiences as well as they build their skills and confidence in doing these things as well.
I do have some resources from the Click to Computer Science website. I just want to let you know about because they may be particularly relevant to the work you're doing. And we also would love to have you take time to complete the survey for this. You can scan the QR code to pull it up, or I put a link in the chat, so you can just click on that. But the best resource I think we have on Click to Computer Science is a Moodle course called Teens Learning to Lead that we developed specifically for teen leaders working in the area of computer science. But I think that it is relevant to whatever experiences you're having teens lead, because the 4 components of the course are what is leadership, communication as a teen leader, experiential learning, and creating a learning environment. And it's just giving teens some fundamental background on what it is to teach, especially in out of school time, and how they can build their skills over time for this. So we wanted to let you know that that course is there because it is free, it's online. Our recommendation is the teens complete this on their own or with a small group, but that they have a mentor or an adult partner that they're communicating with as they're doing the course. It's designed for the whole course to take 4 to 6 hours to complete, but we don't really recommend going through it all at one time. We really feel like what works best is that they do one of these segments is going to take an hour to 90 minutes, maybe a little bit more if they're particularly reflective on it. And they keep a journal as they're doing the course. There's some prompts of what to put in their journal. And then they take some time after they've completed that session to talk with their mentor or coach or supervisor about that particular section. Then they go back and they do the next section. And so it's kind of a series of 4 online lessons that they complete on their own, and then talk about what struck them from that with their mentor or supervisor. Keeping that journal helps connect those 2 experiences. When it's done that way, it's a really powerful experience. It's not always going to work that way. It's also, we found it to be something that they could do with a small group and talk as a group. Anne mentioned how building a team is really helpful for teen leaders, and this might be their first team building activity to do this course and talk about it as they're going through. We wanted to share that with you so that you can have teens, and it is fairly new. We're still trying to make sure everything is working. So I'm putting my email in the chat too. If you have any problems with the course, let me know, and I will help you try to navigate that. I think, Alana, you had some problems the first time you tried to connect with the course, and I think it's working now. But we don't know that that's not working unless people tell us. So please do let me know if you have problems. Thanks for joining us today. I am sorry that we went a little long, but Anne and I are going to stick around for just a couple of minutes. So if you have questions, we're happy to chat some more. But I'm going to go ahead and end the recording at this point. Thank you all.